The housing bubble reaches uncharted territory as home prices soar to record high. With the eviction moratorium ending, the biggest wave of homelessness in American history is about to come. All right. As you might have heard, once the pandemic hit, a lot of Californians figured out that they can keep their jobs working from home, locking in the high salaries of California. But they can move around the country to smaller towns, and guess what? They can become the richest people in that particular town, scooping up big homes and living a lifestyle that they could not afford living in California. One of these places is Bozeman, Montana, or shall we say Montana. I'm not really sure, but what I know back from my college days, Bozeman is one of those party college towns, meaning that it is a little hip and trendy when you compare it to the rest of the state. In other words, in Bozeman you see more people than bisons, and that's a rare occurrence in the state of Montana. But here come the zombie Californians, fueled with high salaries, fake stock market gains, and a lot of stimmies, and they're scooping properties all over Bozeman. And this town is not the only town that zombie Californians have invaded during the pandemic. Perhaps the most popular destination for Californians is the city of Phoenix, Arizona, which is experiencing its most insane, outrageous housing bubble ever as prices in the cities break records. But perhaps the number one destination that zombie Californians have managed to invade during the pandemic is the city of Boise, Idaho. Pretty much every state in the nation have seen their home prices go higher, significantly higher. And I hear all of this talk from Nevadans, Arizonians, Idahoans, whatever the hell they're called. How about we call them potatoes instead? Complaining over and over and over again. All of these Californians are moving in, they're scooping up properties, they're making homes unaffordable for us, our schools are getting flooded, yada yada yada. In the meantime, home prices in California are also rising higher. So who the hell is moving into California? Well, it is not necessary for anybody to move into California for housing prices to go higher. The reason is you can thank the Federal Reserve, the central bank in the United States of America, who is flooding the market with over $120 billion every single month, including mortgage-backed securities to prop up the housing market, and therefore creating this enormous bubble that lifts up housing prices across the board. Every single state in the nation have seen housing prices go higher. But once again, the epicenter of this housing mania, this housing bubble, is the city of Boise, Idaho. What the hell do you do in Boise, Idaho? You go fishing, you go hunt for ducks, what else? But apparently, the city has become the number one destination for Californians and otherwise to migrate to while keeping their remote jobs intact. And it is a mania the likes that we have never seen before. And frankly speaking, if I can find an easy way to short the Boise, Idaho housing market, I will go all in shorting this market because it will experience one of the biggest crashes in U.S. housing history. But first, let's hear the story.
Boise, Idaho is a great place to live. It's got natural beauty, great weather, and friendly people. But wow, is something going on with the real estate.
Is this your house?
It used to be my house.
Alicia Figueroa recently sold her house here, and the experience was incredible.
We had over 150 people walk through in 2 days, which is pretty mind-blowing. We had 9 offers, half of those for cash. And I'm still here because the buyer is allowing me to live here for 5 months rent-free.
Are you willing to share how much more than the listing price it finally went for?
It was around $65,000 more than asking price, but really it was even more than the money. They also didn't require any kind of an inspection or an appraisal. They paid all of the closing costs.
You see this lady right here? This is a winner. This is what you call paper hands. You know, the one that actually makes money. But according to this new generation of investors, the SPAC generation, this lady should have not sold. She should have hodled to the moon with diamond hands, waiting for her home price to go to $10 million first. before she starts selling, or it crashes altogether. One of the other. You know, the hodl culture. You hold with diamond hands until a cartoonish price level hits, which will never hit, or you wait till you lose money. But this lady's smart. She did not hodl. She got them paper hands. She locked in a dream of a deal. And in all probability, the buyer of the house, assuming they're from California, and they haven't even seen the house to begin with, something is going to happen. They're going to change their minds and decide that they're not moving to Idaho after all. And this lady will be able to buy the house back from these donkeys at a discount. This is the deal of a lifetime.
And you know, this was not an unusual offer.
If you contacted me today and said, I'm looking at buying somewhere in the Boise, Greater Treasure Valley, I'd say, put on your gear, buckle up.
Colby Lampman owns Homes of Idaho, a real estate agency that his mother Debbie founded in 1990.
This market, compared to the other hot markets in the past, is sizzling, burning up on fire.
And of course, look at this lady. She has seen things in her life, and she's telling you, but this is crazy.
According to the real estate website Zillow, home values in Boise have shot up 32% in a year, the biggest increase in the country. Smaller cities all over America are seeing a similar boom. Just ask real estate pros like Latrice McFadden in Durham, North Carolina.
It's just insane. We've seen tens of thousands, even $100,000 above list price.
Or Lori Finkelstein-Reeder in Miami, Florida.
Imagine you go to an open house. There could be 50 cars, yes, 50 cars in a line outside waiting to see that property.
Or Joseph Tamburo in Fort Lee, New Jersey.
This has been the busiest market that I've seen in 34 years. It's doing unbelievable.
Or Thomas Brown in Austin, Texas.
There was a home that came on the market. It was $460,000. Our client said, hey, here's what we'll do. We'll buy this house. We will buy the seller's next house. So they bid in the mid 700s.
And look at the reporter's face. He can't even believe what he's hearing. Is this a joke? Is it a prank? Is it dark comedy? Who knows? But this is insane. This is when rationale is stripped out of your brain. You cannot function as a normal human being. Zero intelligence. All brain cells have been erased. And you decide to buy the house and offer to buy the next house for the seller. What a deal. Wow.
In this Wall Street Journal animation, the yellow dots show the flow of people out of California in 2020. Two of those dots might represent Dustin and Brenda Heft, who used Colby Lampman's agency to find their new home in Boise. Like 20% of all Lampman's clients, they bought this Boise house without ever having seen it in person. They'd had only a video tour.
At what point did you finally walk in?
After we signed the papers and got the keys.
What sent you here from California?
My company is amazing and allowed me to work remotely. Really wanted to pivot to somewhere that was a little more our style.
Is there any pushback among the locals to see all the Californians moving in?
To your face, no. But you know, in conversations and stuff, you'll hear some people that are pretty unhappy, and a lot of locals, just can't afford to buy anymore.
And here's the problem. These are Californians who moved to Boise, Idaho, because my employer is great. My employer is nice. They allow me to work from home, even if I live in another state. Worst case scenario, I'll take a plane down to California if I need to attend a meeting. But here's the problem. What if the state of California says, you know what? You guys are stiffing the state by getting California salaries, yet you're living in another state and you're not paying taxes, baby. You gotta be able to live in California to enjoy California salaries. Or, God forbid the market crashes, we have a downturn, your employer fires your ass, and now you have all of these thousands of people who moved into Boise, Idaho, competing for the 5 jobs left in the city. What if California employers realize that working from the office encourages positive work behavior and diversity and world peace, and they ask you to go back to work from the office? I mean, this guy's cheering, Delta, Delta, Delta. Yes, please bring the other variant, because it is his only hope to keep this facade going. And fast forward, this is what's going on with the city of Boise, Idaho. Trash, fires, and soaring home prices. Idaho copes with city dwellers fleeing COVID. This is what happens when zombie Californians move into your city or your state. Take it from me. I used to live in the great state of Oregon, or Oregon, or Oregon. And of course, the Oregonians, they can spot where you're from, which part of hell you're from, based on how you pronounce Oregon. It used to be a peaceful, unique state with nice people. The city of Portland, lots of hippie people. Let's smoke hash and do some sustainable farming kind of people. But then, after the financial crisis, zombie Californians started to move in. For the Boeings of the world, the Nikes, the Intel jobs, what do you know? The city was not prepared to host all of these zombie Californians moving in. The highways, bridges got jammed. You have one of the worst traffic jams that you've ever seen in a city that barely had any traffic jam to begin with. Housing prices soaring, trash all over the place, homelessness all over the place. This is the gift of zombie Californians. And now the city of Portland, Oregon is unlivable. Of course, what a shame, because it is the most beautiful city in the United States of America. And of course, the housing mania continued to grow and grow and grow, so long as the Federal Reserve continues to fuel the market, an already overheated market with unneeded cocaine. At some point, the market is going to overdose. Until then, everybody thinks that this time it's different. Everybody's rich. Everybody's a millionaire looking at their property and its value these days. You think this is going to last? Think again. But the mania has become contagious. An offering to buy houses above the asking price has become the custom and the norm. When Redfin, a property platform, conducted its annual survey of around 2,000 home buyers, 63% reported having bid for a home they had not seen in person. What if the home is being sold as an NFT? It doesn't even exist. They don't care. They're going to put their blindfolds on and they're going to buy. At least 3 U.S. homes have recently sold for more than $1 million over the asking price. It is the latest sign that the housing market has gone completely off the rails. But the Federal Reserve, led by Chairman Jerome Powell, says, I don't see inflation. The housing market, normal. I don't see any problem here. I don't see how us buying $40 billion in mortgage-backed securities every single month, I don't see how that contributes to the housing bubble and the housing mania. If anything, it increases affordability. These people have no shame at all. More examples of the housing mania. This housing market is so crazy. This 600,000 horror is drawing multiple cash offers. You have a piece of dump, vandalized house, and people are stampeding and fighting over each other to bid on the house, cash offers. Tell me again that this is a rational, reasonable, normal market. Matter of fact, prices are hitting all-time highs in America. U.S. median home price hit new high in June. The median price rose to $363,300. The 300 is important. That's your finder's fee. As sales increased 1.4% on strong demand. And this housing bubble is becoming so extreme and so dangerous. The housing affordability gauge has surpassed the 2008 levels. This means that home affordability is at all-time lows. The majority of Americans cannot afford to buy homes. This is the least affordable housing market in U.S. history, surpassing the previous housing bubble in 2007-2008. And of course, every single state in the country is experiencing increasing home prices. Every single city in America is experiencing increased home prices. If you're looking for affordable homes, you're not going to find them anywhere in the country. So here it is. Watch out to our European friends, because zombie American buyers are coming for your housing market. We're about to invade your countries and scoop up all of your homes with our fake stock market gains and pockets full of stimmies. We're coming for you. And of course, listening to all of this, you're probably already asking the question, if homes are becoming unaffordable coast to coast, the least affordable housing market in U.S. history, so who is stampeding and buying homes? Perhaps this provides some answer for you. First-time home buyers are getting outbid by big companies. Ta-da! How corporations are buying up houses, robbing families of the American dream. And you might have seen or heard of the memes circulating online about BlackRock buying houses. BlackRock, Blackstone scooping up single-family homes across the country. Why? Why are corporations scooping up homes across the country? Why are LLCs scooping up homes across the country? Why is it that shell companies over at the Cayman Islands or Bermuda scooping up single-family homes across the nation? Why? Why is this practice allowed? You and I, as single-family home buyers, are competing with offshore corporations with endless amount of money in their pockets. They can outbid all of us. Why is this practice allowed? You can, of course, thank your beloved politicians for that. And watch this segment from CNBC, specifically dickhead Jim Cramer, who has no shame at all, and they're discussing a deal where Blackstone is now getting back into the housing business, specifically becoming America's landlord. They bought a company that buys homes across the country, scoop them up, fix them, and rent them back to tenants. And apologies in advance. This is disgusting to hear, but you must hear it so you know who Jim Cramer is, the piece of shit that he really is.
Now they're buying a new player in this market called Home Partners of America, $6 billion deal. They have a bit of a different approach, but similar, let's call it. You know, they buy homes, they lease them to tenants, they give them the opportunity to buy the home as well. 17,000 homes here. Invitation eventually got to as much as 80,000. But interesting that they're back in it. By the way, Blackstone itself, we don't talk about it too often, $115 billion market value.
You know what's funny, David?
The alternative asset management platform there, and obviously a lot of the permanent capital, the recurring fee base, they're starting to get rewarded for all of that.
Well, you know, the banks owned a lot of housing. And I remember speaking to Michael Corbett, who's no longer the head of Citi. And I said, look, why don't you own the homes, spruce them up, rent? And he said, look, that's not our business. And it's true. A bank is not in the business of running homes, and the regulators don't want them to have any homes. So, I mean, the regulators, going back to what Jamie Dimon said the other day, the regulators are very tough on banks. They don't let them do the things that a Square can do. They certainly don't let them do the things that Blackstone can do. They play with one hand tied behind their back, the banks.
The banks, you say.
Even his co-host is, whoa. Jim, you sure you want this to come out live on air? The banks are having a tough time, not single families, not millennials in their 40s trying to buy a house for the first time. You sure, bro, you want this to come out? The banks, the banks. You sure? And of course, Jim Cramer, the bootlicker that he is for Wall Street and bankers, says, yes, the banks. I meant what I said. The banks. The banks are having it tough.
Yeah.
The banks. You agree?
Sometimes. I think Blackstone is a very powerful competitor in certain areas, but obviously doesn't compete with them.
Yes, they are. Very good. That's a very good report by you.
Yeah, certainly feeds worries about housing shortages over the longer term in the years to come.
And here comes Carl Quesadilla to the rescue. Yeah, I guess all of that will create a shortage for first-time home buyers, and homes are going to become unaffordable. Anyways, we got to go. We got to take a commercial break and sell you some ads from BlackRock. We'll be right back. And ladies and gentlemen, we have reached a crisis level in this housing bubble, in this housing mania. We are in a full-blown crisis. This is the Case-Shiller Home Price Index for several cities in the United States. Los Angeles reaching all-time highs. Everybody keeps talking about Californians moving out of California and creating housing bubbles in Idaho and Arizona. But the housing bubble is also here in California. We are seeing the highest home prices ever in the major cities in California. Los Angeles, all-time highs. What about the city of Portland, Oregon, or Oregon? All-time highs. The least affordable in history. What about the city of San Francisco? All-time highs. Surpassing the levels of the old baby crisis. Remember that one? The housing crisis of 2007? That's nothing to what's going on right now. What about the city of Seattle? Off the charts, the biggest housing mania ever in the city's history. The Case-Shiller Home Price Index for the city of Seattle, all-time highs. And of course, my beloved city of San Diego, the epicenter of the bubble and the inflation crisis in the nation. Off the charts, home prices have reached all-time highs. Complete insanity. And on Twitter, I give you guys anecdotal evidence pretty much every single day about lines that go blocks away for an open house or any rental home that just hit the market. The last one I went to was 1.5 bedroom house. 1.5 bedroom. The house had over 180 offers in the first day of listing. 180 applications, 180 offers, in addition to the people lining up across the block to view the property. Total and complete insanity. And here comes the genius from CNBC, Diana Olick. This is their housing expert, calling the top. And watch out how this developed. Quickly, she says housing boom is over as new home sales fall to pandemic low. Perhaps Diana Olick should read her own article, because in the same article it says most of the home buying is on the higher end of the market and builders cannot afford to put up affordable homes due to skyrocketing construction costs. She's calling the top already. Housing boom is over. Lady, in the same article you say that the demand is still here. People are waiting and waiting and waiting for affordable homes for new supply to hit the market, and it's not coming so far. That doesn't mean that the mania and the bubble is over, because the aggregate demand is still extremely high. Fast forward to the next day, and here comes the same genius, Miss Diana Olick. And the headline reads, home prices broke records in May, according to the S&P Case Chiller. So I guess the housing boom is not over, Diana. Phoenix, San Diego, and Seattle reported the highest year-over-year gains among the 20 cities in May. Phoenix led the way with a 25.9% year-over-year price increase. Wow. Followed by the city of San Diego with 24.7% increase, and Seattle with a 23.4% increase. Chicago, Cleveland, Minneapolis reported the lowest gains, although they were still in the low double digits. Lovely places to live: Chicago, Cleveland, and Minneapolis. But even those cities are also experiencing an extreme housing bubble and housing mania. 5 cities, Cleveland, Dallas, Denver, Seattle, and Charlotte, North Carolina, saw their all-time highest annual gains. Price gains in all 20 cities were in the top quartile of historical performance. In 17 cities, price gains were in the top decile. So what do you say, Diana? Housing boom is over, huh? The housing boom is not over. Here are home prices, the percentage change year over year. And as you can see, every single city in the United States of America is experiencing increase in home prices. Some cities more than others. For example, the city of Phoenix is seeing record-breaking home prices, but every other city is also experiencing increase in prices. And you might ask the question, well, if demand is moving from one state to the other, say from California to Arizona, you would assume that prices, home prices that is, in California would go down. Why aren't home prices in California going down? This is what the deflation crowd doesn't understand. Inflation has always been a monetary phenomenon. So long as the Fed continues to print money out of thin air, flooding the system with unneeded liquidity, home prices will continue to stay at elevated levels even if there is no solid demand. It becomes the norm, and the Federal Reserve, headed by Jerome Powell himself, admitted last week that prices will not go down, but inflation will, magically. Wow, that helps. Prices are not going to go down, but inflation is going to be transitory. Rest assured, that gives you a lot of comfort, doesn't it? Watch out, we're seeing the making of the biggest economic disaster right before our eyes. And of course, here comes the geniuses. It's different this time. It's not like the last time. You gotta trust the Fed this time around. The stock market mania, that's normal. Look at corporate earnings, bro. Look at the retail participation. It is different this time around. You cannot compare it with the dot-com bubble. That was 20 years ago. This housing bubble is different. We have the millennials, the demographics, the pandemic migration. It is different this time around. It's not like the previous housing bubble. Let me refresh your memory, by the way. Back in 2005, Dr. Chiller, the creator of the Case Chiller Index, in 2005, mind you, warned of an impending doom in the housing market, saying that the housing market is in a bubble and it will end badly. And here come the pumpers, the propagandists. One of them is called Neil Barsky, who managed the fund at the time, and he authored this column at the Wall Street Journal back in 2005. asking what housing bubble. In the piece, he mocked and ridiculed Dr. Chiller for his warning, and we all know how that story ended. Dr. Chiller was right. Neil Barsky, fast forward, had to shut down his $3.5 billion fund. Why? Because he lost a shit ton of money. He thought it was different this time around. It wasn't. And he was a reminder, once again, the Case-Shiller Index. U.S. home prices rose in May at the fastest pace in nearly 17 years. Don't say that you haven't been warned. But I know what you're going to say. I get it, bro. The housing market is crazy. I'm not even touching it with a 10-foot pole. But the rental market is still okay, right? Wrong. The bubble is so contagious, one might argue that the bubble in the rental market is even bigger than the housing market. Rents for single-family homes just saw the largest gains in nearly 15 years. Single-family rents were up 5.3% year over year in April, rising from a 2.4% increase in April 2020. This is the largest annual gain in nearly 15 years. And as you can see, the city of San Diego is the epicenter of this housing crisis, this rent boom, this rent bubble, rental market mania. Even a studio apartment in the city of San Diego will cost you a median price of $2,000. A studio apartment. Matter of fact, rents are rising too high, too fast. They're outpacing the growth in wages, or shall we say the lack thereof. What growth in wages? Rent prices are now the least affordable in history, even surpassing the highs of the housing bubble in 2007-2009. When you ask the majority of workers under the age of 40, what is your number one largest monthly expense? The majority would say rent. And now they have to pay even more to have that security, having a roof over the top of your head. Are you going to be left with anything out of your paycheck when rents continue to climb insanely higher? And this is reaching a crisis level. Take, for example, the city of Las Vegas, Nevada, known in the past for its affordability. Well, it is not affordable anymore. Matter of fact, both housing and rent prices have now surpassed the median income.
First, let's tackle homes. The median new single-family home. In Reno, it's high 400s. Vegas, the low 400s. Let's look at the qualifying income. Around $100,000 for both cities. Now, the median family income for those Nevadans. Both priced out. So let's compare now Reno and Vegas. Let's take a one-bedroom apartment. You're looking at $1,100 to $1,400 across the state. Then let's look at how much your income should be. High 40s to low 50s. And then what single people earn. There's still a gap in both these cities by at least $5,000 from what you can afford to what's actually out there.
And a lot of Americans are giving up altogether. Housing market, rental market can't afford them at all. And they are resorting to quote-unquote creative ways of living, also known as van life. Utahns try van life as rents and home prices soar. Some have moved into RVs, trailers, or vans willingly. Others say they've been pushed there by rising rents and housing costs. This is the American dream. It got reduced to a van. Pretty soon, it's going to be reduced to an Amazon box. You'll be lucky if you can live inside an Amazon box in a street corner. And of course, these Utahns, how are they going to live in a van with all 4 wives? It's too much, isn't it? That's a Utah joke, by the way, just in case you did not get it. But perhaps there's a point to make. Think about it. If you do practice polygamy and you have 5 wives, assuming all of you guys work, now you have 6 sources of income in this household. All of a sudden, housing affordability is no longer a problem. You see how smart we are? I had a point when I brought up the sister wives thing. I didn't mean I was over you, honey. I was just making a suggestion of solving our home affordability issues. I know I'm not advising for you to go to your wife right now and say, I got a proposal. How about we have some sister wives so we can afford a large home with a nice pool, a big backyard. There are no guarantees. She's going to say yes. You might end up being homeless tonight. I mean, we're going to end up being homeless anyways, so it's worth taking a shot. But a disclaimer, good results are not guaranteed, so proceed with caution. And that leads us to this. Home prices are increasing. Rent prices are increasing out of whack. And the only thing that kept the rental market in check, the only thing that kept a cap over the rental market mania is the eviction moratorium. But here's the catch. U.S. states brace for quote-unquote avalanche of evictions as the federal moratorium ends. It's a moratorium, not moratorium. Who cares? It expired. It's done. Housing advocates are concerned that delays in rental assistance mean tenants will suddenly owe months of payments. A historic eviction crisis could be coming to the U.S. in days, this housing expert warns. Of course, the Biden administration on Friday attempted to extend the moratorium. Biden administration asks Congress to extend the federal eviction moratorium set to expire Sunday, meaning tonight, citing concerns over the Delta variant of COVID-19. Fast forward, here it is. Spoiler alert. House fails to extend eviction moratorium, ahead of 6-week recess. Yes, your beloved politicians are going for a 6-week vacation while the country is quote-unquote in crisis and the eviction moratorium is set to expire, leaving millions of Americans under the threat of eviction. But your beloved politicians are taking a 6-week vacation. They're going to be at the beach slurping cocktails while your ass gets evicted. And here is a map from the New York Times. It shows you the percentage of renters who owe back rent in your area. For example, in San Diego, 14.1% of renters, all of them, 14% owe back rent, meaning that at least 4% of all renters in the city of San Diego are under threat of eviction as we speak. And if you thought that was bad, take a look at southern states where you have over 25% of all renters happen to owe back rent. Over 25%. They're all under the threat of eviction as we speak right now. And this is another map that shows you the average amount that these renters owe. For example, in the city of San Diego, they owe an average of $5,899. Once again, an average of $5,899, almost $6,000. On average, folks, we're about to see the biggest wave of homelessness that this country has ever seen in its history. There's no doubt in my mind. Millions of tenants at risk as federal eviction ban ends. Here we go. And this is what will happen. Advocates fear a huge surge of homeless veterans as pandemic effects become clear. And with the eviction moratorium expiring, we will see more homeless veterans sleeping in the street. These are people that put their lives on the line to serve the country and quote-unquote protect your freedom, and they're going to end up in the streets. Because, believe it or not, our government and the Federal Reserve doesn't care at all about these people. They only care about the donor class. They only care about propping up the real estate market to make the rich richer. No regard whatsoever to who's going to get impacted, veterans or non-veterans. A lot of people are going to end up in the streets. And by the way, I know what you're going to say. Bro, I rent and I paid my rent. Why should I be worried about this moratorium expiring? This is about the bums, the poories, the deadbeats who are not paying their rents. Who cares about them? They should have paid their rent anyways. Hold your horses. It's not just people who are behind on rent who are going to get evicted. Watch out and mark my words. Even you who paid your rent on time, you're going to get evicted too. Here's why. I am a landlord. You are my tenant. We signed the lease a year ago, 2 years ago, so you're locked up in terms of your rent. You pay what's on the lease. The problem is, in this housing mania, in this massive orgy of a bubble, I can rent the same unit for 50% more if it becomes available. If I get your ass out of the unit, I can rent the unit to somebody new who's going to pay me 50% more of what you're paying me right now. On top of that, let's say that I have a house that you happen to rent from me. You signed the lease 2 years ago, 5 years ago. You're paying below market price. I'd like to bring the price to market price, meaning bubble territory price, and you're standing in the way, baby. I gotta get rid of you. I gotta evict your ass so I can bring the property's value back to market value. What if I want to sell my property to exploit the mania? You're standing in the way, baby. You did not do anything wrong. You paid rent on time. Yes, but I still have to get rid of you to bring my property back to market value. I know what you're going to say. Why can't you just raise rent on me? I don't want to move out in this housing market. I'd pay more. The problem is a lot of cities are under rent control. For example, the city of San Diego, you cannot raise rent more than the CPI, which is 5% right now. You can raise a maximum of 10%. Well, you're paying $1,500 for one bedroom. If I raise your rent, I'm only allowed to raise $150 a month. But if I get rid of your ass and evict you out of the property, then I can rent it to new tenants for $2,500 a month. It is a no-brainer, so watch out for the tsunami of evictions that's about to hit. Those who paid and those who haven't paid, everybody will get hit. Why should I keep you in the property as my tenant when I can list the property on Airbnb and I will make what you pay me in a month in a week listing the property on Airbnb? And now Airbnb is saying we're going to prevent landlords from profiting of this tragedy. So any property with eviction history, we're going to refuse to list the property on Airbnb. Of course, the problem is there is no way to find out whether a property had an eviction history or not. So the likelihood is a lot of landlords will evict people to list their properties on Airbnb. It will happen, and this is exactly the environment that the Federal Reserve has created, pinning landlord against tenants all over the country, a conflict of interest. Even though a lot of these tenants have paid rent on time, they haven't done anything wrong, but landlords will find any small violation of the lease. Oh, that stray cat you've been feeding, to my knowledge, you adopted the cat. The lease says no pets, bingo, eviction. And you might be asking yourself right now, how couldn't the Fed see this? The Fed must be watching all of this. They must know what they're doing, that this affordability crisis is getting out of hand. How could they not see that? Well, they're actually seeing it. Matter of fact, Jerome Powell talked about his bike rides from his home to the Fed and how he sees all of these homeless people in tents living a couple of blocks from the Federal Reserve's building itself. You have homeless people surrounding the Fed. There is no way you can miss them. Jerome Powell says, yeah, I'll meet them. I hear you, I see you, but you, I don't care about you. My job is to care about the wealthy, not the bums. So why don't you guys find another spot to place your tents at? Oh, and by the way, you guys smell bad. Here's the problem with evictions. We have a broken system in this country. One mistake and you're damned forever. One mistake and you're dead from society. Be it your credit score, be it your criminal record, be it your eviction record. Any small mistake, if your record is not pristine, you're done. And you can get into a cycle, a loop of homelessness, drugs that takes you to dark alleys you never thought existed before. An eviction in your record will stay for over 7 years. In a housing market like this, you're not going to qualify for mortgage loans. You're not going to qualify to rent at a new property. The new landlord will find out your record. You have an eviction in your record. You're done. Even if you have a job, if you have an income, if you have done nothing wrong, having an eviction in your record is a death sentence. You're not going to be able to rent anymore. You're not going to be able to buy a house, and you're going to enter a dark alley, a loop of homelessness, just for that simple word in your record. Eviction. For example, take people who got caught with the possession of drugs, even at some point. Once that is on your record, your credit score will collapse. Nobody's going to rent you any new apartment. You're not going to find a home. You're not going to find jobs. You're done. You have fallen out of society for one single mistake. It's a merciless system, and it is designed to fail you. And this is the moral of the story. America's central bank helped spark the U.S. housing boom. Now it fears it created a monster. And this is exactly what it is, a Frankenstein. And it was created by no other than the Fed chairman Jerome Powell. His policies are fueling this mania, and they are responsible for creating one of the biggest homelessness waves in U.S. history. This housing bubble, this housing boom, this housing mania will end in one of two ways. Number one, the Fed will manually pop the bubble by tightening its monetary policy, meaning tapering assets purchasing and increasing interest rates. Of course, that is unforeseeable unless inflation gets out of hand. The other way this bubble ends is to pop on its own, and if it pops on its own, it will trigger a seismic event that will be recorded as one of the greatest crashes in U.S. housing market history. And this is the unescapable truth. One of the basic merits of the American dream is home ownership. It represents accomplishment, independence, and shelter security. A combination of pandemic-era migration and reckless monetary policy has fueled the creation of an irrational housing bubble, the likes that we have not seen before, and made this dream unattainable for most Americans. The American divide is greater than ever before. While the wealthiest Americans buy their second and third homes, an entire generation awaits again yet another housing crisis, keeping them ever distant from achieving the basic merit of the American dream. It is different this time, they say. Perhaps the scale of the crisis is indeed different. It is much larger than before. This time around, even rents outpaced affordability. We are now at the verge of one of the biggest homelessness waves this country has ever seen as the eviction moratorium ends. Evictions can be a death sentence, preventing tenants from ever being able to rent again and ever being able to find a job. Evictions separate children from their schools, create millions of abandoned pets, drive some into deep depression, financial ruin, and a never-ending cycle of homelessness. Mom-and-pop landlords also at the risk of foreclosure, delayed retirement, or missing out on college tuition for their children in the case of non-payment. This is indeed different, a crisis like no other before, and the reckless monetary policy out of the Federal Reserve continues to add fuel to fire to an already blistering hot market, turning the American dream into an American tragedy.